Welcome to the wacky, weird, and most importantly, crazy history of the cell theory. Sometime in the 1590s, a Dutch scientist named Zacharias Janssen, who came from the Netherlands, invented the first compound microscope. It was a big hit, and pretty much everyone wanted one. However, most of the credit is attributed to Hans Janssen, his father, as he was a spectacle producer, so he may have had a relatively large portion of help from his father. Later, in the mid-1600s, but to be precise, 1665, an English scientist by the name of Robert Hooke discovered something called a cell. He called it this because it looked like a cell, similar to an empty room like monks lived in at the time. Hooke also dabbled in many other topics. Later on, he got in a feud with a very famous scientist named Sir Isaac Newton. Newton had just released a brand new book that was totally groundbreaking. Hooke thought that Newton had stolen and used Hooke's ideas. An English scientist who you may know was Sir Isaac Newton. He published a book on how planets moved due to gravity. When Newton discovered that Hooke had tried to call him out, he wasn't very fond of it. After Robert Hooke had died, Newton stole most of his belongings, including Hooke's only portrait. After Newton passed, most of Hooke's items were recovered, except Hooke's portrait. Nobody knows what had happened to it, at all. Hooke could have looked like anyone, or anything, like this, that, or maybe even that. Newsflash! While Hooke was alive, another Dutch scientist by the name of Anton van Leeuwenhoek never bought his own microscope, but he made one of his own. It was a strange little thing, but it had worked, and that mattered to Anton. Once he had his own microscope, he went absolutely bonkers with it. He looked at a wide selection of things. He called the strange little cells that he had found animalcules. Let's get up to speed around the 1800s. Two German scientists, Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann, were studying cells at the same time. Schleiden was a botanist, and he enjoyed spending his time studying plants under microscopes. He came to the realization that all plants are made of cells. At the same time, though, Schwann had been studying animal cells, and he too came to the realization that all animals were made out of cells. He quickly notified the people in the same field as Schleiden. Schleiden got back to Schwann, and they started working together to form the cell theory. They had agreed on every part of the cell theory, including the fact that every living thing is made of one or more cells, and that the cell is the foundation of life. They agreed on everything, except one last part, that all cells had to either come from pre-existing cells, or that cells had to, bam, pop into existence, also known as free cell formation, just like that. When a Prussian scientist named Rudolf Virchow noticed the dispute, he stepped in with evidence to prove that the pre-existing cell theory was correct, but that evidence was stolen from a Jewish scientist named Robert Remak. And, of course, those scientists got into a feud too, just like Robert Hooke and Sir Isaac Newton, and thus the cell theory was born.